True horror stories.
The house on Old Creek Road stood at the edge of Blackwood Forest in upstate New York, a place most locals avoided after sunset. It wasn't abandoned, not officially, but no one had lived there for years. Paint peeled from its wooden walls like dead skin, and the windows looked like dark, unblinking eyes watching anyone who slowed their car nearby. 12-year-old Ethan Miller noticed it the first night they moved in, his face pressed against the cold glass of his bedroom window, his breath fogging the pane as lightning flickered somewhere far beyond the trees. They had left Brooklyn in a hurry. Ethan didn't fully understand why. His mother, Laura, said it was a fresh start, but her hands shook when she said it, and his father avoided looking at the house when they pulled into the driveway. The wind howled through the trees, carrying a low, almost human sound, something between a groan and a whisper. Ethan felt it crawl under his skin. That first night, sleep wouldn't come. The house creaked constantly, as if adjusting to their presence. Every sound felt louder, closer. Ethan lay still, staring into the darkness of his room, his heart beating fast. Then he heard it. A soft dragging noise, slow and deliberate, moving along the hallway outside his door. He held his breath, listening. His mind raced through explanations, old pipes, the house settling, but none of them matched the rhythm. It stopped directly outside his room. "Mom," he whispered. No answer. The doorknob turned just enough to click, then stopped. Ethan squeezed his eyes shut, counting silently, his nails digging into the blanket. When he finally opened them, the hallway was quiet again. The door hadn't opened. Still, he didn't sleep until morning. The next day, while Laura unpacked boxes, Ethan explored the house. In the basement he found a locked metal door he hadn't seen before, hidden behind shelves of old tools and jars filled with unidentifiable things floating in cloudy liquid. A smell lingered there, chemicals and something rotten beneath it. He backed away, his stomach twisting, suddenly certain he wasn't supposed to be there. School didn't help. Kids in town whispered when they learned where he lived. One boy laughed nervously and said, "That's the Frankenstein house." When Ethan asked what he meant, no one answered. They just looked away. That night, the sounds returned, louder now. Footsteps above the ceiling, even though no one was upstairs. A faint humming, low and mechanical, drifting through the vents. Ethan sat up in bed, his chest tight, his eyes filling with tears he didn't understand. He felt watched, studied, like an insect pinned under glass. Around midnight, the power went out. The house plunged into darkness, and the silence that followed was worse than any sound. Then a generator kicked in somewhere deep below the house, casting a dull, flickering light up the stairwell. Ethan felt compelled to move, his fear tangled with a curiosity he couldn't explain. He crept into the hallway. The basement door stood open. Each step down felt heavier than the last. The air grew colder, thicker. At the bottom, he saw it. A large table in the center of the room, metal restraints bolted to its sides. Wires hung from the ceiling like veins. On the wall, faded photographs showed a tall, misshapen figure, its face blurred as if the camera itself was afraid. A voice spoke behind him. "You weren't supposed to see this yet." Ethan spun around, screaming. A man stood in the shadows, tall and pale, his eyes sunken and burning with something unnatural. His lab coat was stained dark, and his hands trembled with barely contained excitement. "My name is Victor," he said softly. "In this house, this is where miracles are made." Ethan tried to run, but the door slammed shut. The generator roared louder, the lights flickering wildly. Victor stepped closer, smiling. "I needed a new beginning," he said. "Just like your family." A sudden crash echoed above them, followed by a deep, inhuman growl. The lights went out completely. In the darkness, something moved. Ethan felt a massive presence behind him, felt breath, cold and warm, brush against his neck. He screamed as unseen hands grabbed him, lifting him off the ground with impossible strength. The last thing he heard before everything went black was Victor's whisper, trembling with awe. "It's alive, and it's hungry." The cold returned to Ethan before the pain did. His eyes fluttered open, vision blurred, the world swaying as if he were underwater. A low mechanical hum filled his ears, steady and relentless. When his sight finally focused, he realized he was lying on the metal table. Thick leather restraints bit into his wrists and ankles. Panic surged through him, raw and instant, his chest heaving as he struggled, the restraints answering with a hollow clink that echoed through the basement. Bright lights snapped on above him. Ethan screamed. Victor stood over him, his face half lit, eyes wide with a devotion that felt worse than anger. "Easy," he said gently, as if speaking to a frightened animal. "You're safe. Safer than you've ever been." "You're lying," Ethan sobbed, his voice cracking. "My mom, my dad. They're sleeping," Victor replied. "The house helps with that." A shadow shifted behind Victor. Ethan felt it before he saw it. The temperature dropped, his breath fogging in the air. Slow, heavy footsteps approached, each one vibrating through the table and into his bones. Victor stepped aside. The creature emerged from the darkness. It was tall, too tall to be human, its body stitched together with thick, uneven seams that crawled across gray, scarred skin. One arm was noticeably longer than the other. Metal braces wrapped around its spine, small lights blinking along embedded wires that disappeared into its flesh. Its face was a patchwork of features that didn't quite belong together. One eye was milky and unfocused, the other sharp and painfully aware. The creature looked at Ethan. And then it flinched. A deep, broken sound escaped its throat, something like confusion mixed with pain. It leaned closer, sniffing the air, its massive chest rising and falling rapidly. Ethan stopped screaming. Terror froze into something else, an instinctive understanding that this thing wasn't just a monster. "It remembers," Victor whispered, trembling with excitement. "The neural responses are stronger when it's exposed to fear. Emotional proximity accelerates bonding." "What does that mean?" Ethan whispered. Victor smiled. "It means you're perfect." The creature raised a shaking hand toward Ethan's face. Its fingers were scarred, the nails cracked and dark. Just before touching him, it hesitated. A low whine escaped its throat, almost like regret. Suddenly, a voice screamed from upstairs. "Ethan, Laura." The creature recoiled violently, knocking over a tray of instruments. The crash sent Victor stumbling back. The restraints around Ethan's right wrist loosened, just enough. Adrenaline surged. He twisted, screaming as leather tore skin, and pulled free. The basement door burst open. Laura stood at the top of the stairs, wild-eyed, holding a flashlight like a weapon. Her scream cut through the hum of machines when she saw the creature. The thing turned toward her, reacting to the fear pouring off her in waves. "No!" Ethan shouted. "Don't come down." Too late. The creature roared. The sound was deafening, a mix of rage and agony. Lights exploded overhead. Sparks rained down. In the chaos, Ethan slid off the table and ran, his bare feet slapping against the cold concrete. Victor shouted commands, frantic now, not godlike anymore but desperate. The creature lunged, not at Ethan, at Victor. It grabbed him with brutal speed, lifting him into the air. Victor screamed, not in pain at first, but in betrayal. "I made you," he cried. The creature slammed him into the wall. Once, twice. On the third impact, Victor stopped moving. Silence followed, thick and suffocating. The creature stared at Victor's broken body, its chest heaving. Then it looked at Ethan again. The rage faded, replaced by something hollow. Sirens wailed in the distance. Laura grabbed Ethan, pulling him up the stairs, her hands shaking uncontrollably. "We're leaving," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "We're never coming back." Behind them, the creature let out a sound that made Ethan's heart twist. A low, mournful cry that echoed through the house, through the forest, through something deep inside him. As they ran, Ethan looked back once. The creature stood at the bottom of the stairs, watching them go. Not chasing, waiting. 3 days later, the news called it an electrical fire caused by illegal experiments. Victor's name was never mentioned. The house was boarded up. Authorities searched the forest but found nothing. Life tried to return to normal. But at night, Ethan still woke up sweating, hearing footsteps outside his window. Sometimes, when he stared into the dark too long, he saw a tall silhouette standing between the trees, its mismatched eyes glowing faintly. It never came closer. Until one night, months later, when Ethan heard a soft knock on the glass. Not a bang, not a scratch, just 3 slow taps. He already knew what he would see before he opened the curtain. And somewhere deep in his chest, fear mixed with something worse. Guilt. Because the creature wasn't hunting him. It was looking for the only person who had ever seen it as more than a monster. Ethan stood frozen as the curtain trembled in his shaking hand. The 3 taps echoed again, slower this time, patient. His heart pounded so loudly he was sure it could be heard outside. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to wake his mother, to hide. But another feeling held him in place, an unbearable pull, like unfinished words stuck in his throat. He pulled the curtain back. The creature stood just beyond the glass, partially hidden by the tree line. Rain soaked its massive frame, water running down the stitched seams of its skin. One eye glowed faintly in the darkness, the other shadowed and sad. It didn't move. It didn't roar. It simply watched him, breathing heavily, fogging the cold night air. Ethan swallowed hard and unlocked the window. The moment the latch clicked, he regretted it. The creature leaned closer, its massive face inches away now. Ethan could see the details, the scars that told stories of pain, the trembling jaw struggling to form words, the faint flicker of electricity still alive beneath its skin. "You ran," the creature rasped. Its voice was broken, stitched together like its body. Ethan's eyes filled with tears. "I was scared." The creature tilted its head, processing. "So was I." A sound from the hallway made Ethan flinch. His mother. He knew he had seconds. "You can't stay here," he whispered. "They'll hurt you." The creature's shoulders slumped. "Everyone hurts me." Something snapped inside Ethan. All the fear, all the guilt, all the nights of waking up screaming, it poured out. "You saved me," he said. "You stopped him." The creature stepped back slowly, as if the words physically struck it. "I stopped pain." Sirens wailed far away again. Someone had seen the silhouette. Someone had called it in. The creature turned toward the forest. "Wait," Ethan said, panic rising. "Where will you go?" The creature paused. "Away from fear." It took one heavy step backward, then another, disappearing into the darkness between the trees. The night swallowed it whole. Years passed. Ethan grew up, but Blackwood Forest never left him. Neither did the dreams. He studied neuroscience in college, driven by an obsession he never spoke aloud. Late nights in labs, surrounded by humming machines, he felt a familiar presence sometimes, like something watching from just beyond the light. One winter night, while driving through a remote highway in Oregon, his car broke down. Snow fell thick and silent. His phone had no signal. As panic crept in, he heard footsteps crunching through the snow. Slow, heavy, familiar. The creature emerged from the trees. It looked different, older, worn, scars layered over scars. But its eyes were the same. "Ethan didn't run. You found me," he whispered. The creature nodded. "I followed your voice." In my head. They stood there, man and monster, mirrored by loneliness. Headlights appeared in the distance. The creature stepped back. "They'll see you," Ethan said. The creature hesitated. "Will they fear me?" Ethan took a breath, then did something that changed everything. He stepped forward and placed his hand on the creature's arm. "No," he said. "I won't let them." For the first time, the creature smiled, not with its mouth, but with something deeper. Something human. The headlights passed without stopping. The road fell silent again. By morning, the creature was gone. Years later, rumors spread across small towns. Stories of a giant who saved lost hikers. Of a shadow that scared away attackers. Of a monster who protected the afraid. They never called it Frankenstein. But Ethan knew the truth. A monster isn't born from stitches and lightning. It's born when empathy dies. And somewhere deep in America's forests, something broken was still learning how to be human, one act of kindness at a time. The tapping on glass never returned. Because it was no longer asking to be let in. It had finally found a place in the world.